Hey, everybody, welcome to Buffalo Plus on the Buffalo Plus YouTube page. Mike Catalana, Jenna Cottrell, Dan Fates, the whole Buffalo Plus team together as the NFL starts to come back together again. As we're speaking here, rookies starting to report, and then it's going to be the quarterbacks, injured players, full rosters, all that within a week or so. It's very different than what we've seen, but they have a plan, and it's testing, more testing. Dan, I'll start with you. Did the NFL pay attention? Is that what happened here?
Yeah, I think they got it right. I think they were able to look at what the MLB did and what the NBA did, heavily testing as guys came into, in the NBA's term, in the bubble. Same thing with the MLB. And now they're going to test every day, and then they're going to go to every other day testing. And as the rate drops, they'll lessen up on the testing, which I think makes a lot of sense. Then they came out with that flow chart about pretty much everything, if you've been in contact with somebody and how that all works. Look, we've ripped apart the NFL for how they've handled this situation. And I think the best way to compare it is a kid that was supposed to do summer reading all summer. They had it, and then they put it off until the last minute, and they're using like Spark Notes, and they're like, yeah, this is fine. They got it done. This seems to make sense. The players even unified on social media that they want to play. They got it done. It seems like this is the right plan. I'm sorry. I still just think this should have been done 2 months ago.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Dan. Also, I was definitely that kid, so I guess I can't really blame the NFL on that. But no, I think my one concern that I have is, the testing rate will drop if the rate of positive test drops. But the NBA is different. It's a bubble. Whereas for the NFL, it's not going to be that type of situation. So I am curious because I know players are going to be responsible for the environment and where they are, but I just worry about, the NBA has done such a great job of controlling the environment that how much the NFL's lack of doing that will affect them.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for the NFL is I don't know if you could create a total bubble like the NBA has. Keep one thing in mind, too, the rosters. This isn't even like training camp for them. I mean, they have a season, so they've got a roster of 12 or 13 players. Right. That's all that's there, limited amount of coaches, and you got them all together. And obviously the use of courts is much smaller than what a football team needs. But they can take elements of it, right? They can do their best. And Dan, I think the key is not mitigating the cases, keeping the cases out, right? I mean, the NBA right now has 0. If you got 0, you keep it at 0, you're going to be great. Now that's a lot to ask. I think that'd be tough for the NFL to keep it there, but maybe they can do enough testing to keep that number low.
But it's testing, and then it's also you're going to have the players at some point put this on their own responsibility. You've seen it. Baseball players talk about their families a lot. That's what I've heard a lot about. NHL, I've even heard some players just being like, the veteran guys on the teams being like, hey, young guys, knock it off. We don't need to be going out and partying. Like, we're coming here for a goal to play the playoffs. Like, I think that's going to be kind of tough for maybe some NFL players to adjust early on because it's like, well, we're getting tested. This is kind of how it is. I think it's going to be that delicate tightrope, like you said, Mike, of understanding it.
But, hey, Jenna, I was thinking of this. NBA players come back. They're basically in the playoffs. So you could be eliminated pretty fast. Major League Baseball, 60 games in basically, 70 days, and then those teams are going to be eliminated. The NFL, at least adhering to this, even though they're not in a bubble, we're talking about January plus.
Yeah. And that's kind of like my thing is I wonder how this will affect NFL locker rooms. Obviously, it's a large group of guys coming together. They're supposed to be acting like a team, and you want to keep that unit as one. But is this going to be something that could possibly fragment a team from the inside of just how guys react to the masking or how they are responsibly off of the field, off of and away from the facility? So I think there are a lot of questions, and I think it really is dependent on the culture that's already been set up as well. Like how much responsibility is going to be put on these guys. But you're right. I mean, Mike, all the other leagues, it's that incentive of right around the corner, it's the playoffs, if not the postseason. The NFL, it is not like that.
Dan, I think Jenna makes a great point. It's like they've talked about relationships and businesses during this pandemic. If they were in trouble, this didn't help it, right? So if you don't have a good culture or the ability to have a good culture, and this is where I wonder about teams with a lot of change or new head coaches. One thing we can say about this Bills team, they know each other. The room's been established. I mean, Trey White's going to be a little wacky running around, and, Jordan Poyer's a quieter guy in the locker room. Everybody sort of knows that, so they don't have to establish themselves as much. Some other teams, I think, are going to struggle with that.
Well, we know Trey White's going to wear his mask. He was tweeting about that the other day. Trey will be wearing his mask. He's made that crystal clear.
Is it a hockey mask, a goalie's mask, or no?
It may be. That's a good point. Maybe just a visor, just a big. He may have the face shield, like the full-on one. But no, I think it is interesting because, the NFL is doing they're going to do like disciplinary fines for, if you're reckless behavior and stuff like that. A lot of these guys make enough money that these fines are so minuscule. Guys get fined every week for the way they wear their socks. Like, the fines aren't going to be enough to keep guys on track and safe for everybody. It's going to have to be on them. It's going to be the leaders in the room, because a $20,000 fine isn't maybe not necessarily going to stop somebody from going out. But if you have a guy like a Lorenzo Alexander, if you have some veterans in the room, those established locker rooms like you're talking about, Mike, they're going to be the ones that really kind of put the hammer down, I think, like you said.
No, I agree 100%. And I think that's why it will be interesting to see how, like Mike, you alluded to, the Bills have a great culture. But we know Kyle Williams is not walking through the door. We know the same about Lorenzo, although he might want to I take that back. He might actually want to return. But I will say my thing is I'm excited at the fact that players are looking to return. Now, with the way testing is, it's not like they're hitting the ground running. And I think that is the one thing that the NFL, because they waited, it's now a situation where it's going to be basically like a soft opening to the season because of how things went.
They could have done it differently. They could have worked it out with the players to have them come back early just for the testing and the acclimation and then get started. Eliminating the preseason games is going to hurt some guys. There is no doubt. It's going to hurt some players who need to prove something. But to other players, we know from talking to them, most of the veterans, they didn't care about those games. They just want to get going. And that first month of the year when we get going is going to be – I don't think it's going to be pretty football. I think we're going to be happy that it's back, but, man, there's going to be some issues.
Also, from watching a couple of those MLB games, I'm all for fake crowd noise.
See?
It is legit. Yeah. Legit fake crowd noise. All for it.
And speaking of that, the atmosphere, if you see the NBA and the way it's set up, the court is a TV studio. It's set up to look typical of the NBA. You can't do that as much in the NFL, but they basically blocked a lot of stuff off. It's taking away from the fact that you'd see a bunch of empty seats.
Yeah. I think that's a smart way to do it too, because people forget almost. They're just excited to see it on. Let's be real. Yeah. People are just ready for that. But hopefully that means soon there will be football.
Sports week.
Yep, they're all coming back. All right, we're all going to see how this plays out. To be honest, with all of you guys watching, none of us in the media are even sure how our coverage of the teams is going to be. I can tell you this, all the interviews are going to be done like this because we won't be permitted to be near the players in that sense. So when we say fans won't be at the games, we're not even sure about ourselves covering the games. Everything from be a distance, almost every interview will be a Zoom, but we all want our football back and we hope it's coming back and it's going to be good. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching here on Buffalo Plus on our YouTube channel. For Jenna and Dan, I'm Mike. We'll talk to you next time.